Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Vidita Sinha, and before I begin to talk about today's topic, let me thank and take this opportunity to thank the UGC HRD Center of Gujarat University for providing and connecting us to share the knowledge we have. Also, I would like to specially thank Professor and Dr. Jagdish Joshi sir for providing such an excellent platform for all of us, and also for his adept leadership through which we are able to connect. I was just going through the website of UGC HRDC Center of Gujarat University, and I was astonished to find that it ranks 15th in India and first in Gujarat. So finding that was really amazing. In fact, I could find a program for all the people, be it a PhD student or the trainers, the faculties, the PhD students, everyone. So basically, I would like to congratulate the UGC HRDC Center before I proceed with today's session. So I would be talking about a topic that is consumer learning. So before I begin, let me just share my screen. So basically, the imperative of choosing this topic is consumer learning is one of the foundations of consumer behavior, meaning that without consumer learning, the consumer consumption would not occur. It is one of the key psychological factors which results into consumer consumptions. So basically, consumption behavior is highly impacted with consumer learning, and that is why I have chosen this topic to narrate about today. So basically, before I start, let me just brief you about what would be the content of this module. I'll be talking about what exactly is consumer learning process and what are the elements. I'll be talking about the major theories, their applications, and I would also like to talk about the information processing and cognitive learning theories. So besides the behavioral theories, what are the cognitive theories that I'll be talking about? I'll be talking about consumer involvement, how it is important, why it is important, what are the applications, what are the strategic effects on consumer behavior, and lastly, I would also like to talk about how consumer learning and its results are measured. So, not taking much of your time, let me just begin with the core topic. Consumer learning, when I talk about, as per marketing and as per Skiffman, the process by which individuals they acquire the purchase and consumption knowledge and experience that they apply to future related behavior. So basically, this is how you acquire the entire knowledge and then you apply it for the future purchases. That entire process is known as consumer learning. Some characteristics of consumer learning which are there includes that consumer learning is a process that continually evolves and changes due to newly acquired knowledge. So basically, consumer learning is not a short term program, it is a continuous one. For example, you may discuss with your friend about a new product that you have just encountered, or you may just go through an advertisement, or your family members would discuss it. You may browse it through the internet. So basically, every time the consumer learning evolves and it changes. Not all, but second characteristic is not all the learning is deliberate. It is not always deliberate. Though it is continuous, you might be observing. There are some things that you forget also, and there are some things that are not deliberate also. That means they can be incidental also. There can be intentional learning also and incidental learning also. When I talk about incidental learning, that means that I went to the shopping mall and I just saw the new range of cookies there. So that was not intentionally done. It was incidentally that I saw those cookies over there. So basically, it can be incidental and then it can be deliberately done also, right? So these are the characteristics of learning. Before proceeding, as such, the theorists of the consumer learning, they always believe that there are no universal rules for consumer learning. However, there are some of the elements which are very, very essential. For example, motivation. Unless and until you're not motivated, you'll not learn. So there are some set of unfulfilled needs which leads to motivation, and because of which people are motivated to learn more about the process. For example, if I have an interview lined up in the next week, then in that case maybe I'll find a good blazer for myself. So when I want that blazer for myself, what I'll do is I'll start searching for some good brands which can offer me a very good blazer. So basically, motivation is one of the elements which is very, very important. The second important element is the cues. For example, there are some stimuli that direct the motives. The stimuli can be the product itself. For example, if I was just passing by a mall and I could see a very good blazer that was there in the display, that could be one of the things that has made me learn more about the brand and that blazer. So basically, it can be the product itself, it can be the display of the product itself, it can be the discounts also. Suppose I'm getting very good discounts on that blazer, then in that case I will be motivated to buy it. Moreover, advertisement which is very enticing can also lead to acceptance of that blazer. So basically, cues are also equally important. The responses are very, very important. For example, the third element is response. Now when I have collected the information, the reaction could be, it can be favorable, wherein I am in the favor of purchasing the brand. The second could be that I'm not satisfied with the product, I don't think that is the right product for me, and I'm not purchasing it. Or otherwise I can be overt. For example, I may think of it sometimes after, so I'm just postponing the purchase. So basically, or otherwise I'm just being aware of the brand, I have interest but I have postponed it for a later stage. So basically, responses can be favorable, it can be unfavorable also, and it can be overt also. And the fourth element which I'm going to talk about is reinforcement. So by reinforcement, it means, for example, if I purchased that very brand which I was looking for, suppose it was Alan Solly, and I'm very much satisfied with Alan Solly, then in that case, I will also consider that brand for the future purchases. So basically, reinforcement means that if the results were favorable, you will be continuing it for a longer amount of time. So now I talk about the major learning theories. So majorly, the learning theories can be bifurcated into two. The first is the behavioral theories. By behavioral theories, we also call them stimulus response theories. The reason is that there is a stimulus which results into the response, or otherwise there is a response because of which there is a stimulus. That is what I mean by behavioral learning theory. So in the coming slides, I'll be explaining more about it. But for time being, behavioral theories are based on observable behaviors that occur as the result of exposure to the stimuli. So there is a stimuli and there is a response to it. So that is what we understand by the behavioral theories. And then there are cognitive learning theories. So cognitive learning theories, they emphasize that mental information processing is there, and often in response to that is in response to the problem solving. For example, if there is a problem which I'm facing, for example, I don't have a vehicle with me to travel to my office, then in that case what I'll do is I'll start searching internally or and externally also for the options which can solve my problem. For example, I can buy a scooterate, or I can buy a bike, or I can go for a car. So whatever it is. So cognitive learning theories, they talk about mental information processing, while behavioral theories, they talk about the stimulus and the response. So when I talk about behavioral theories, as I've just mentioned, those are stimulus response theories. They can be classified further into two types. The first one is classical conditioning theory, which has been very renowned and a very olden theory. And the second one is instrumental or operant conditioning theory. So I'll be briefing you about both, and I will be talking about the strategic implications as well. So basically, when I talk about classical conditioning theory, It is a behavioral learning theory according to which a stimulus is paired with another stimulus that elicits a known response that serves to produce the same response when used alone. For example, we all know that when there is an aroma of food, we start feeling hungry. So that is a natural phenomenon that does not have to do anything. That does not have to do anything with. So basically, classical conditioning theory, what it means is that there is a behavioral learning theory which talks about the stimulus. I was talking about an example that whenever there is an aroma of food, we all start feeling hungry. So that is a natural phenomenon, and that does not have anything to do with the advertisement, marketing, anything. But now, if I show a brand and I show an advertisement on television which shows that after having the aroma of Maggie, you are motivated to eat it. Next time, whenever there is an aroma, you will start feeling like I should have Maggie. So basically, this is how the behavioral learning theories they work. There has to be a stimulus and a response, for which there was a classical thing which was done by. Before I talk about the theory, there are certain assumptions which we need to understand. So basically, one of the assumptions was that early classical conditioning theorists, they regarded all the organisms, whether they are humans or they are animals, they are relatively entities that could be taught any behavior or certain behavior through repetition or conditioning. If you show them repetitively anything, they will learn it. And they are passive listeners. That was the assumption which was made by the classical conditioning theory. The word conditioning mean a kind of knee jerk or automatic response to a situation built up through repeated exposure. So basically, what happens here is, once you are acquainted with the things, you have learned about it, the next time it is happening, you will directly go for the response. For example, we have been conditioned from the beginning, from our childhood days, that whenever there is a headache or whenever you are unwell, you should go to a physician. So basically, that would happen by default. So that is what is the assumption of classical conditioning theory. Here is a diagram of what experiment was done by the Russian theorist, psychologist, and he had come with classical conditioning theory. So before coming up with the classical conditioning theory, what he did was that he had observed that it is a natural phenomenon that whenever a dog will see a piece of meat or a meat plate, then in that case they will salivate. That is a natural phenomenon which will happen with any dog in the world. So basically, what Ivan Pavlov had done was, instead of just using it as an observation, what he did was he had associated the meat with the bell. For example, what he used to do was that he used to ring a bell and then he used to serve the meat to the dog. So what happened was, gradually, after certain amount of days, what happened was that the whenever he used to ring the bell, at that very point only the dog used to salivate. He used to start salivating. So basically, he did not understand that ringing the bell was not really connected with salivation, but because ringing the bell was associated with the meat for several amount of days, and that is why it was associated, and the dog had learned that whenever the bell will ring, the meat will be served, and so he used to start salivate. Earlier, when the dog used to hear the ring of the bell, he never used to react. But later on, because the bell was associated with the meat, therefore the salivation could occur. So basically, this is what is the crux of classical conditioning theory. If I'm clubbing the unconditioned stimuli with the conditioned stimuli, then in that case, the unconditioned response, which we'll be addressing as the conditioned response now onwards, that would occur. So basically, bell is no way related to salivation, but because in this experiment, Ivan Pavlov had associated the bell with the meat, Therefore, the salivation could occur. So this can be concluded that, even as a marketer, you can use this theory. For example, dinner aromas, they always lead to salivation. That is always there. But if that is always happening whenever you are watching news, then in that case your mother is cooking for you and that leads to the salivation, then in that case, after certain amount of time, gradually you will be finding that whenever there is a 6 o'clock news, you will be find salivating and feeling hungry. So basically this is how the marketers can use it. For example, if I talk about the Nivea brand, grandmothers, they are always associated with, they are always known for their love and affection. Now if the advertisement of Nivea, it shows a grandma who is caring for her grandchildren with the help of Nivea brand. Over a period of time, what will happen is Nivea will be equal to the love and care. So basically that is the application of classical conditioning theory. But there are certain rules in order to have the optimal conditioning. The neo Pavlov's theory, classical conditioning theory, it focuses upon certain points to be kept into mind while you are conditioning. So optimal conditioning can only happen if there is a forward conditioning. That means the conditional stimuli should be before the unconditional stimuli, then only the effect will be higher. Like for example, when I was talking about the experiment of Sir Ivan Pavlov, at that point of time the conditional stimuli, that is the meat, that is the bell, was ranked first, and then the unconditional stimuli, that is the bell, the meat was ranked. So basically the bell was ringing and then the meat was served. So the conditional stimuli was preceding the unconditional stimuli. The repeated pairing of conditional stimuli and unconditional stimuli should be there. So there has to be a repetition. If this is happening only for once, then in that case it will not give you the effect. But if this is happening continuously, repeatedly, then only it will have the effect. The conditional stimuli and unconditional stimuli should be logically clubbed. There has to be a logic between clubbing the unconditional and the conditional stimuli. It should not be vague things that are to be clubbed. Moreover, the conditional stimuli should be novel and unfamiliar. The image of the conditional stimuli should not deviate from what it has been portrayed along with the unconditional stimuli. So basically, it should be novel and unfamiliar. Then only this will work. The unconditional stimuli should be biological or symbolical salient. So basically, salience should always be there. So these were some of the optimal conditioning conditions. Now I talk about the application of classical conditioning theory. The most important part of the chapter is how a marketer can benefit with the application of classical conditioning theory. So one of the things is that when a brand is associated with celebrities, nowadays we can find so many celebrities endorsing the various brands. So why do the marketers pay so much to the celebrities? Why do you think they spend so much? Because celebrities, they are naturally known that they are very attractive, they are very successful, and they are very popular. So when you associate a brand with the celebrity, what happens is those traits are directly related to the brand. That by using this brand, I will look attractive, I will look successful, and I will look popular. So basically, that's the reason, that is the probable reason that most of the marketers, they are investing so highly on the brand ambassadors. So basically, the consumers, they start believing that the product is also desirable and worth buying. Similarly, some of the marketers are using the principle of scarcity. So the principle of scarcity is that people, they really value or they really want something that is scarce, that is always there. So it is a human psychology. So what marketers are doing is that they are using this principle by creating an impression that a product is in limited supply, it is in limited quantity. Like for example, Zara fashion, what it does is it creates a fear of missing out. If I'm not taking the product right now, if I'm not taking my desirable dress at this point of time, it will be unavailable for me after few days. So basically that also can be done. Scarcity is always valued. That is a natural phenomenon. Now Zara fashion has made it scarce, and in this way they have leverage. So basically there is ample application of classical conditioning theories. The strategic applications of the same would be that repetition has to be there. Increases the association between the unconditioned and conditioned stimuli. So basically the stimulus have to be clubbed many a times, as I've previously also discussed, that the association has to be reminded of, and it has to be repeated number of times, then only it will work. For example, a advertisement has to be shown number of times, then only it will have the desirable impact. Moreover, cosmetic uh, variations could be done. Cosmetic variations means the faces can be changed, the endorsers can be changed, the person who is endorsing the brand can be changed. For example, Lux has been using so many leading actresses in the advertisement. So cosmetic variations, of course, they do not make a very vast impression or variation, but still it is desirable, because otherwise what will happen is that people will forget the advertisement. There would be advertising wear outs. By advertising wear outs, I mean to say that there is a theory. There are various theories which shows, which out of which one of them says that there is a three hit theory. Three hit theory means that only three exposures are important for any advertisement to work. To create the awareness, first hit. The second hit is for showing the relevance of the product, and the third one to show the benefits. That's it. Only three hits can work. Other proponents, they support that only three hits cannot work, but 11 to 12 hits can be a good amount of hits or good amount of advertisement that can lead to acceptability of the product. But after 12 hits, what about it? So then in that case, you can go for substantive variation. So basically, there has to be a substantive variation. By substantive variation, I mean to say that the content needs to be changed. Not only the ambassador, but the content also needs to be changed. For example, we have always seen that Nike, everybody remembers the tagline. It is just do it, or I'm loving it is the tagline of McDonald's. So why we really are able to recall the taglines? The reason is that there is an ample amount of repetition that is going on. So that is one of the reasons. Second important concept is stimulus generalization. So generalization has to be there. For example, some of the there are applications of classical conditioning theory where, because of generalizations, the stimuli is very similar to the original one, and that is why there are some incidents where it has helped the marketing people abundantly. So basically, having the same response to slightly different stimuli. For example, the parent brand is very successful. So what will happen? Suppose Amul is very familiar brand and everybody knows about Amul. Now there is a Me Too product which is like Amul only. They have imitated the package also and the spelling also. It is, instead of Amul, if they keep it Amal, then in that case people would not be able to notice it at first sight, and they may purchase the product. In this way the products may get succeeded. Also, in case of product extension, family branding, and licensing, stimulus generalization plays a very important role. For example, if there is a new detergent by HUL, that which is having starch also, it has a property that it will clean your clothes also, and for cotton clothes it will apply the starch also. So you need not do it again and again, and you need not do the process separately, first cleaning and then starching. So this product may or may not be successful if it had been from any brand. But because it is from HUL, the probability of the success of this product is very high. So basically, that is also one of the reasons that stimulus generalization is a very important concept, right? So product extensions can be done, family branding, like for example, one name for entire products. Amul does that. Amul has name, it is a family brand. To every product of Amul family, there would be a Amul symbol and a Amul name. So basically, the acceptability is very high. Even if it is a haldi doodh, a very traditional thing which we usually consume at our homes also, it becomes easier and acceptable to the audience. Licensing. Many a times, when the brands are giving license, then in that case, the fake or the counterfeiter brands, they also emerge. So stimulus generalization can be dangerous also, because the marketers may or may not be aware how their popularity has been used by the fake or me too products. Stimulus different discrimination, so there has to be a differentiation also. Now it is very important for a brand to have some point of differentiation in order to survive and to excel. So basically, selection of a specific stimulus from similar stimuli, that has to be there. It has to be different from the other brands. It is actually the opposite of stimulus generalization, and discrimination can be the basis of positioning. For example, there are so many brands which have their unique discrimination. They have come up because they had the discrimination. Tanishq was successful because it was one of the first branded jewelry outlet brand. So basically, it was having the branded jewelry uh, to offer to the Indian audience. So basically, stimulus discrimination has to be there. How you are appealing to the audience is very, very essential, and there has to be a point of discrimination. So that is the application of the classical conditioning theory. Now, coming to the second behavioral theory, that is instrumental theory or the operant conditioning theory. So, basically, when I talk about the operant theory, a behavioral theory of learning based on trial and error process, which habits force as the result of positive reinforcement or experiences resulting from certain responses or behaviors. So, basically, what happens is, here, it is the opposite of classical conditioning theory. In the classical conditioning theory, we had seen that because of the stimulus, the response is occurring. But in operant theory, it is the reverse case. That means because of the response, the stimulus will be occurring. By this, I mean to say that if the results are positive, then in that case, the stimuli will be changing. I will be deciding whether to buy or not to buy a product. For example, if the positive response was there, I had bought a brand 1 month ago, and it was very good brand, and I was very much satisfied with the brand. Then in that case, the chances are very high that I would be continuing with the same brand. So basically, that is what is the crux of the reinforcement or the operant or the instrumental theory. So basically, here also there was an experiment which was done by an American psychologist whose name was B.F. Skinner. So, Sir B.F. Skinner, what he did was that he also had used animals for his experiments. There was set of rats whom he had recruited for this experiment. What he did was he had used a cage in which these rats were let in, and then what happened was that when once the rat they went into the cage, they were trapped, and after getting trapped, they panicked for a while, and there was intentionally a lever which was kept inside the cage, which when pressed, even if you are pressing it incidentally also, then in that case the food will come out. Now what happened was, after a certain amount of time, when the rats were panicking, they discovered that there was a lever where they could get the food. Now what happened was, it was an incidental way of discovering the lever, but now when they had understand, they had used the learning and they continued to do it again and again. So basically, every time they used to press the lever, the food used to come out. After a certain amount of time, Sir B.F. Skinner, the cage was known as the Skinner's cage. So Skinner's cage was intentionally devoid of any food. Now, if you press the lever, also the food would not come. He had discontinued the providing of the food. So now what happened was the rats they kept on pressing those levers, but this time the results were different. The results were not satisfying. The food was not coming, so the rats got discouraged and they discontinued with the behavior. So this is how the reinforcement theory or the operant theory it really works. For example, if I'm going to buy a jeans, what I'll do is I'll try brand A. If it is not very good brand, it is too loose for me, I'll try another brand. If that is also very tight, I will not be satisfied, I'll try the third one. I'll again try, and I'll keep on trying unless and until I am getting the perfect fit. Once I'm getting the perfect fit, what I'll do is I'll continue for this brand in the coming years also. So that is what is meant by the instrumental learning theory. So basically, the outcomes of the reinforcement could be there are positive outcomes. Suppose I've used I have been a very loyal customer of Starbucks. Then in that case, any of the variants given by Starbucks, and if I'm getting some loyalty bonus, or I'm getting some discount coupons, or any loyalty programs under which I'm registered in Starbucks, that would be a added advantage that would lead me to be a loyal customer of Starbucks for a very long time. So basically, positive impact can be there. There can be negative outcomes also. By negative outcomes, I mean to say that, for example, I had purchased a coffee somewhere and it was very discouraging. It was not up to the mark. The coffee was very less, or the milk was missing. Then in that case, I will be discouraged and I will not continue with those products. But one important thing to note over here is that negative reinforcement does not mean that it is punishment. It is not the punishment I'm talking about. Negative reinforcement can be in the case of the fear appeal. Suppose the advertisement by the insurance company, it always shows that you should always be insured, otherwise in the dire consequences your family might suffer tremendously. So basically, negative reinforcement is also important for the marketers. The third stage is extinction. Suppose your favorite soda brand is discontinued from the market. What will you do? You will find another alternative. So after a certain amount of time, you will find some other brand, that is extinction, or you will forget the things. So basically, this is how the theories they work. So basically, the strategic applications over here are that customer satisfaction can be there. For example, if you are giving continuously the loyalty programs, you are having the relationship marketing, then in that case what will happen is that the loyal customers will increase day by day. People will rely on your brand and they will be forced to buy your product. So customer satisfaction can be reinforced. You can give a free coffee to your loyal customers whenever they visit your store, or you can give them some loyalty programs, you can give some occasional discount coupons, or any chance to participate in some contest. So basically, this is how the reinforcement can lead to customer satisfaction. But one thing which needs to be meant into mind is that reinforcement should be done as per the schedule. For example, it can be continuously you are having something for your loyal customers, or it can be after certain amount of time. Say after 3 months I'll be rewarding my loyal customers, or it can be randomly. Anytime I will be doing that. So basically, that can be done. Shaping is one of the strategic applications of instrumental theory, which occurs actually before the reinforcement, by having the reinforcement before the behavior occurs. So before the customer they are coming, you can give them some benefits. For example, the startup companies, they usually deploy this that they give the customers, the first 100 customers are given anything they want to purchase at rupees 1. So what is that? That is shaping of the behavior. You are making them used to the discounts, and this way you are trying to get their loyalty. So that can be also done. And then the last point is masked versus distributed learning. So basically media planning can be done, whether you want to show all the advertisements together only, or otherwise it has to be distributed over a period of time. Like for example, if you want prompt sales to happen, then in that case masked learning is a better option. If you want immediate rise in the sales, then in that case masked learning has to be there. You need to plan all your advertisements at a given point of time within a month or so, and so the sales will increase. But if you want that the sale should happen throughout the year, and you're not very eager, you can really wait for your customers to be acquainted. So the learning process would be slow because the advertisements would be planned throughout the year. So throughout the year the sales would happen, but it would not happen immediately. So that is what we understand by the second theory, that was instrumental theory. Now we come to a observational learning, which is also known as modeling or vicarious learning. So by vicarious learning, what I mean to say is it is a process by which individuals learn behavior by observing the behavior of others and consequences of such behavior. So basically here what happens is that you are able to learn by observing others. Now, by others, I mean to say it can be your siblings, your parents, anybody who is a role model of yours, any classmate, any colleague, any role model, whomsoever you follow. You can learn from them. There are opinion leaders from which you can learn. You can learn from the celebrities. Actually, the advertisements are made so that you learn from them. Like for example, if the celebrities are using a certain style of fashion brand, then in that case people are also motivated, especially when I talk about the youngsters. They are quite motivated to use such style of fashion. So basically that is known as a vicarious learning. By vicarious learning I mean to say learning by observation. So you observe others and you learn. Not all the learning has to be intentional. It can be learned by observing also. So basically when you see your parents uh, using and applying a certain brand to their hair, then in that case you will also be motivated to do the same. So vicarious learning always occurs, and observational learning is one of the things that can be done. So I have concluded in this part of the presentation about the uh, behavioral theories. I've talked about the classical conditioning theory, about the operant theory, and I have also talked about the vicarious learning theory. In the next session I will be talking about the cognitive learning theories, which believes that mental processing of information is very much essential, and it will be talking about the motivation also. So it is a long process. It talks about how we retrieve the information, retention of the information, how the short term, long term memory works. So all those things we'll be learning. One more important thing which would be discussed in the next lecture would be that we'll be talking about how the level of involvement changes the way the advertisement should be portrayed. What appeal would work in the case of high involvement products and low involvement products? What exactly are high involvement products and low involvement products? So that is all from my side for this video. Here I have tried to share all the things which are essential for learning if you are following the behavioral um, theories. Now I'll be talking about the cognitive theories in the next session. The part two of consumer learning. I've already discussed with you about the initial theories of consumer learning. We have already discussed about the behavioral theories about the consumer learning, what it is, what are the conditions, what are the elements of consumer learning, how the consumer learning occurs, the behavioral theories we have discussed about. We have discussed about the classical conditioning theory. We have talked about the instrumental learning theory, and we have also talked about the vicarious learning or the observational learning. So that was about the previous lecture. Today I'll be talking about the cognitive learning theories, and I will be talking about some of the essential points, like what is the input, how the information processing occurs, how the retention occurs, how the retrieval occurs, and after all these things occur, what is the implications to the marketing people. Also, in addition, I'll be talking about the involvement of the customers, how they find they differentiate between the purchase of the products, how they take interest in buying certain products, and they find for ample of information. So basically I'll be talking about the level of involvement of the consumers, and I'll be talking about what are the routes of persuasion which would be advisable in the purchase of high involvement products and low involvement products. So that is what I'm going to discuss in this part of my session. Let me start with the information process theory. So when I talk about the cognitive learning theories, they basically involve complex mental processing of information. So basically it says cognitive learning theories, they emphasize that before learning there is an ample amount of mental processing that takes place. And it also talks about the role of motivation. If somebody is motivated to buy some product, the consumer learning would be very high, and they would try their level best to come up with the learning theories. So basically this is how the things have to be. And information processing and memory, when I talk about, there is a diagram which is visible on the screen. So basically the information processing, it starts with step number 1, that is sensory input. By sensory input, I mean to say there are various senses that we have. We can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can smell. So basically, we can use these senses and we can get some information. Like, for example, a friend of mine who is discussing about some product. So that can be an input for me. I'll be able to understand that there is a new product and how it is working, where it is available. Some of the information I can be getting from there. Similarly, there can be a sensory store. Once the input is there, not all the information would get into the sensory store, because at a particular amount of time, for example, when I'm sitting here, uh, along with taking your session, I'm also listening, and I'm also visualizing many things, but not everything is getting into the sensory store. Some of the information is either forgotten or lost. It is a magic of the human brain that, we tag the information as less relevant. For example, the things, the furniture which I see every day would not be, getting into my sensory store every day. I may be overlooking them, I may be neglecting them, or I may be ignoring them. So not every sensory input will be converted into the sensory store. There would be a chunk of information that would be forgotten and lost. Now, in order to make this sensory store information go into the short term memory, what I need to do? I need to do is a rehearsal. Rehearsal means revising the things again and again. When you go through the same content, when you see the same content, then in that case, it comes into your short term memory. But again, it can be forgotten, it can be lost. And when you are doing the rehearsal, it's very important that, you have to be very cautious that you are doing it at a regular interval. If it is after a very long time that you revise the things, then in that case it is not going to help. So the revision has to be, the rehearsal has to be done very quickly, say in 2 or 3 days. That will lead the information to be in the short term store. Now, once the information is in the short term store, the encoding can be done. Now, in order to make it into long term, certain things have to be there. Like, for example, it has been proven that when the information is in the form of pictorial representation, then in that case, it becomes very, very easy for people to interpret. For example, people retain the pictures very easily. We retain the symbols, the logos of the brands very easily. If I ask you what is the logo of Nike, like, so basically Nike, when I talk about, it is a brand. The moment I say Nike, the image of that tick will come to your mind. Just do it. That slogan will come into your mind. So basically, there is an encoding which is done. The more pictorial content, the more easier it would be to land up into the long term store. Similarly, the more complex information would not get into the long term store very easily. The information has to be simplified. The information should have less cognitive effort. By cognitive, I mean to say that not much information should be complex. The mental work should be very less. If it is the information which requires very less amount of mental abilities, then in that case it can come into the long term store. Otherwise, it will be forgotten and unable. Now, even if it comes to the long term store, retrieval is very essential. I may be knowing about thousands of brands, but not all the brands I'll be able to retrieve once it is required. So basically, retrieval is something that is very, very essential. Because that is the point where you will recall the product and you will purchase the product. So for a marketer, it's very important that the information they are giving through their advertisements, through their promotion, reaches to the sensory store. From there it goes to the short term store, and from there it becomes the long term store memory. So basically, this is what is essential, and retrieval is equally essential. So basically, this is what we understand by the cognitive learning theories. So cognitive learning theories, they emphasize on the process, but this process entirely does not assure that the purchasing behavior will occur. Of course, when something is noticed, like for example, I have noticed a advertisement, it might go into the sensory store and thereby go into the short term memory. After short term memory, it may go to the long term memory, and it may lead to the retrieval also. So retrieval is very essential. Now let me talk about the role of rehearsal and retention for this process to occur flawlessly. First thing is, like I've just explained you, that there is an importance of pictorial representation. When it is pictorial representation, it becomes easy for people to process it. For example, we can easily interpret the pictures, the images, the symbols, the jingles, the music. We can always relate those things very easily. But if I ask you the features of any product, it is very difficult for you to interpret. So basically, pictorial representation can be one of the alternatives. Anything that requires less cognitive ability, you don't have to apply your brain into it, that would be accepted, and that would reach to the long term memory very, very easily. Moreover, information overload should not be there. In today's era, what is happening is there are so many advertisements available. So when there are so many advertisements all around, what happens is there is a probability of the information overload. The consumers, they come across several thousands of advertisements while they are moving, while they are watching TV, when they are accessing the internet. So basically, information overload is also one of the reasons why the information does not reach the long term memory. Also, other factors which lead to long term memory is that if the product is relevant to a person, the information related to the product would reach to the long term memory. For example, if I'm not interested in buying a bike, then in that case it makes no sense to inquire and retain all the information. Even if incidentally I come across so much information about bikes. Maybe I'll not remember all of them intentionally, or because I'm not interested in it, and because of which what will happen is that I'll not be able to tell about that information if somebody is asking about it. So basically, relevance is also important. The past experience is also very important. In the past, whatever you have witnessed, whatever you have experienced, is also very much important when you are talking about the customer consumer learning. For example, for me to have a learning, if I have come across uh, the similar segments of products, then in that case what will happen is I'll be in a better position to accept the information. For example, if I have never heard what a EV is, what a electric vehicle is, then in that case it would be very difficult for me to understand what exactly is electric vehicle, how does it operate. So many functional aspects are there, so many features are there in the electric vehicle. How electric vehicle is a better choice, whether it is really a better choice or it is a dead investment, what would be the faith of the product. So there would be so many questions. Now addressing all the questions at one go would be a very difficult task. Instead, what can be done is you can have, um, a limited amount of information which you pass on to the customers. As a marketer, what you can do is you can make the information in chunks. Chunking means you can put a small amount of information for the customers to digest. In this way, you can create the awareness. Like, for example, when the Docomo brand was launched, in the initial few months and few weeks, what was done was only the jingle Docomo, that was promoted. Once everybody was curious what exactly is Docomo, at that point of time they came up with the real interpretation of Docomo, that it was a telecommunication service provider. So basically, this is how you have to create the curiosity, and the information overload should not be there. The entire information should not be given to the customer at one go, because in those cases the customers would not be in a position to grasp it every time, and not every customer would be having the higher cognitive ability also. Not every customer is wise enough to grasp it. So basically, the customer also, they differ in their cognitive levels. Some people, they are educated, some people they are not even educated, some people they are educated and they are techno savvy, so they would be in a better position to understand what exactly is being talked about, because they have a similar past experience, they have some knowledge about the product. So basically, all these things also have a relevance on how much information would be retained. Next thing which is very important is there is a process, a very important and an interesting process, which is known as activation. By activation, I mean to say is that as a human being, we have a tendency of relating new information to the older one. Suppose, for example, a few days back, my friend was talking about an electric vehicle. At that point of time, maybe I did not pay much heed to what he or she was talking about, but after a certain days, I have suddenly seen so many posters, so many hoardings, so much of promotion is being done, so much discussion is done on electric vehicle. At that point of time, now my perception would be changing. What I'll do is I will be starting relating the new information with the older information which I had pursued from my friend. So basically, activation leads to better learning. Whatever you have learned, once you read additional things, you get more clarity and the retention becomes easier. Like, for example, if there is a small mathematics this thing a lecture on that, or there is a lesson on mathematics, it would be difficult for you to understand all of a sudden at one go. But what can be done is you read some portion of that lesson today, Tomorrow also you can add on with the things. You can use a different book and you can solve the similar problems. Third day again you can try out for some new sources, and this way when you are relating the new information with the old information, the memory will the retention would be better and the memory would be more powerful. So basically activation is one of the process which is very very important. Like for example, the marketers, they can add on new information to the existing information which almost all the consumers or of their products know. So basically this is how you can use the activation as a process. Third thing is brand identity. People today, the marketers today, they are spending so much amount of money on creating a brand identity. The reason for creating the brand identity is that brand identity can help you to acquaint the customers about your product. Once they are acquainted about your products, they it would be easy for them to accept the product. For example, if I'm already aware of the brand Bisleri, then in that case, whenever I'm thirsty, the first preference would be given to the Bisleri. So brand identity leads to retention. Once I know the product, I will be in a better position to retain what is the USP of the product, what is so special about the product, what is the point of differentiation association associated with the product. So basically, brand identity is very essential. The next phenomenon is chunking. Chunking means, as I just told you, that marketers cannot overburden us with a lot of information about their products. The reason to this is one, it is not effective, and two, if they overburden us, then in that case, the length of the advertisement would be very long one, and that would cost them very high. So basically, what they do is they divide the entire big information about their products into small chunks. Small amount of information is given to the customers, and you know what happens when that small amount of information is passed on to the consumers perceive those information on the basis of their experience and their knowledge. Once they have the experience and the knowledge, they apply the past knowledge and the past experience, and they interpret those chunk of information. Now what happens is, suppose my past experience is something else. It is not coinciding with whatever has been shown in the advertisement. Then, in that case, I will be baffled and maybe I'll not be in a position to accept what has been shown. So, basically, this is what the chunking is. The chunk of the information is provided to the consumers, and this way you can create a long term retention of the information. Then you can also show the information in two ways. The first way is episodically. Episodically, as the name suggests, it is as per the order, as per what things happen. For example, step one, step two, step three, step four. So basically, you can talk in this way about the information. That also leads to the retention, or you can use a semantically you can show the information, that is as per the information significance. For example, I may remember for a customer, the episodically information retention would be that, I'll be remembering that I went to that shop, I bought this, then I got this much money, then I was really happy with the product, but the next day I was shattered with the performance of the product. So basically this is an episode which they have retained. In the second approach, that is semantically retained information. That means that I remember only the significant part, that I was not satisfied with the product quality. So basically it is as per the significance. So when I talk about the retrieval, it is dependent on the relevance also. If the product category is appealing me, it looks relevant to me, then in that case maybe I will my memory will be in a better position to retrieve the information. And similarly, if the competitors present are very less in number, there is very less intensity of competition in the market, then in that case the retrieval can be very fast. But otherwise, if there is a ample intensity of the competition, there are so many competitors all around, then in that case retrieval becomes difficult. So basically it depends on the competition also, that whether you are in a position to retrieve it or not. So on the basis of the cognitive information theory, there are some theoretical models which have been proposed over a period of time, which have special relevance in the marketing. So for example, some of the generic frameworks, they talk about that, it is essential for you as a marketer to create the knowledge about your product first. Then it will be accepted by the customers. Once it is accepted, it will be evaluated, and once it is evaluated and it is found to be favorable, it would be purchased. So basically creating knowledge, generating knowledge, making your customers aware of the things, and not only making them aware, but they should know the utility of the product. That is the first step. Then if they find the when they evaluate the product, and if they find it to be satisfactory, they may think of buying it. So basically, that is a generic framework. Besides that, there are some promotional frameworks. For example, a very famous model that is known as AIDA model in marketing, AIDA model. So basically, attention, interest, desire, and action. Whenever you are making any promotional content, the first thing which should happen is it should be attention grabbing. The content or the advertisement that you're making should be attention grabbing. It should be capable of enticing your customers to look into the promotional content. Otherwise, how will it be effective? So the first thing is it should be attention grabbing. The second thing is it should create the interest and the desire. Now at this point of time, I would like to differentiate between interest and desire. Interest is less intense, is having less intensity, while desire is having more amount of intensity. That is what is the difference between interest and desire. So more important for a marketer would be desire than the interest, because once the desire has been there, then in that case people work hard and they really want that product to be in their purchases. So basically the action, that is the buying behavior, is very much probable. The third theory is tri-component model, which talks about cognitive, affective, and conative or behavioral aspects. So basically, cognitive theory talks about that whenever somebody is, approaching and really thinking of buying a product, the first thing would be happening mentally. He or she would think about the product, the USP, whether it is having the utility, whether it is a really worth product to be bought. Second thing is there is a effective component also. There is something emotional also. Some products, they may not be very useful to us, but we are attracted to them because emotionally, effectively, we are attached to them. So basically there is an effective component also to the purchase. And if both of these qualify, then in that case there is a behavior also. That is the behavior in the sense of buying behavior. So basically, buying would occur if I think that it's a good product, if I feel it's a good product, then in that case, I'm bound to take the product. Then the fourth model is decision making model. So basically, this is also regarding the buying decision. The first thing is the person should be aware, especially in the case of the very less known products. This is very true that awareness has to be created, and then not only awareness will be helpful, but knowledge also has to be created. Knowledge in the sense that the USP should be shared, that the things should be shared very openly, the evaluation should be positive. Once the evaluation is positive, the purchase would happen, and not only purchase, post purchase would also have an impact. For example, if I've used any product and I am satisfied with the product, then in that case next time also I'll be motivated to buy that product. So that is what I understand by decision making model. The next model, which is innovation adoption model, is specific to any innovation. as the name implies, it is applicable to the new products. So basically, in the first stage, you need to create awareness because it's a new product. Obviously, creating awareness is a very essential stage, and then the interest should be there, evaluation should be there, interest should be created through the promotional content, and the evaluation should be positive on browsing the promotional content, and that will motivate a person to try the product. Once the trial is successful, if the customer is satisfied on trying the product, he or she may think of adopting the product. So basically, this is what we understand with innovation adoption model. The last model is innovation decision model. It starts with knowledge. The first thing is that your customer should know about the product, because it is an innovative product. Having adequate knowledge is important, not only awareness, because awareness would only help you up to a certain extent, but it knowledge is more important, because knowledge talks about what is unique about the product. Being an innovative product, knowledge makes sense. Once the knowledge is passed on to your consumers, they are persuaded, they are motivated to buy the product. Once they are motivated, then in that case the decision is confirmed, and because of which the buying process would occur. So basically, these are the theoretical models which have been derived from the cognitive information. Now coming to the second part of this session, that is how involvement and passive learning takes place. So basically, here I'll be sharing with you the definitions and measures of involvement. What do I mean by involvement, and how to measure the involvement? What really accounts for the involvement? I'll be talking about the marketing applications of involvement. I'll be talking about what does it mean if it is a high involvement product, what does it mean if it is a low involvement product, which routes of persuasion would be effective in the case of high and low involvement products, and I'll be acquainting you with the aspects of hemispherical lateralization and passive learning. So basically, what is the meaning of hemispherical lateralization, how our brain works, what are the two parts of the brain, and what is passive learning. So that would be the agenda I would be covering up. So basically, when I talk about the relevance, when I talk about the involvement, so it is nothing but it is the degree of personal relevance that the product or purchase holds for the consumers or the customers. So basically, how relevant the product is very important for me to decide. For example, the personal relevance, if it is higher, if it is really needed for me, this is some of the product which I was just looking for and I was in dire need of it, then in that case I would take more amount of interest in evaluating it. I would be putting a higher amount of time, effort, money, everything to acquire as much information as I can. So basically, if it is a more relevant product, I would be investing more amount of time, energy, money. And if it is a less relevant product to me, then in that case I don't mind, I won't spend a ample amount of time, efforts, and money. So basically, there are high involvement purchases which are very very important to the consumers, because high involvement purchases, they have a element of risk to it. It can be financial risk. For example, if I have bought a new house which is not a very good choice, after a few days I discover, then in that case I have encountered the financial risk. Now I'll have to find out for another house. So basically, when people, they make uh, very high purchases, high involvement purchases, then in that case they put a lot of time, effort, and they inquire as much as they can. Like for example, if I really want to purchase a house, a new house, I will go to so many societies, I'll inquire so many times through various sources, and I will be choosing the best choice after evaluating for, say, weeks or months or maybe a year also. So high involvement purchases are very important to the consumers because they are more relevant and they have an element of risk. If you don't evaluate them carefully, then in that case, at a later point of stage, what can happen is you might have to bear the risk. It can be a social risk, it can be a financial risk, any sort of risk you'll have to encounter. While in the case of low involvement products, those have little relevance, those are not very relevant. So basically they have very less risk. In contrast to the high involvement products, they have very less amount of perceived risk and have limited information processing. So basically people don't care. Like for example, if I go and I have to purchase say a hand wash, I won't mind whether it is Dettol or it is Lifebuoy, because it is less relevant. At the end of the day, the only function which is required is it should be capable of cleaning my hands. So basically, as long as the cleaning of my hands is flawless, then in that case it doesn't matter whether it is Dettol or Lifebuoy. It will not be and even if it is a wrong choice, it will not cost me higher. There is a lesser amount of risk. Maybe I'll just lose 50 rupees of mine. So 50 rupees here and there does not make a difference. But in the case of high involvement purchases, it can be in crores, it can be in lakhs, it can be in thousands. So basically, when you're purchasing any high end product, be it real estate products, the cars, the furnitures, the appliances, anything which is costly, at that point of time, there is a amount of risk. If you choose the wrong brand, then in that case you will have to incur so much of cost to repair, to get it repaired. It would be so you will have to face so much of hassle. So basically high involvement purchases have to be taken very seriously. So for that, what happens is measuring of the involvement is very essential. As a marketer, you should always be very sure that whether there was an involvement with the promotional involvement of the customer with the promotional content or not. For example, there is a scale which has been developed, which you can see on the screen, which talks about a promotional content, whether the message in the slogan was important to me. Like for example, it is asking the respondents whether the message was important, whether it didn't have anything to do with your needs, whether it made you think about joining the military. So basically promotional content, how effective it is has to be evaluated very well. Once you evaluate your promotional content, and that's the reason people today, the marketers today, they are getting involved in so many surveys and researches. Even they give fundings to the external agencies also to understand how involved their customers are, whether their promotional content is up to the mark, whether the promotional content has created some curiosity or not, whether the promotional content is satisfying the needs of most of their prospects and potential customers or not. So basically this is how you can conduct, as a marketer you should and you can conduct so many researches so as to analyze the promotional content, and that would give you an idea of how involved your customers are. So basically, as we have understood that involvement with the customers is a priority for the marketers today. So basically, in order to implement such goals, there are some of the tactics which have been used, the tactics and the strategies which have been applied by the marketers today. So one of them is having ads in video games. For example, if I'm using my video game, I'm playing game on my video game, I'll get some ads in the process. So these ads are intentionally, placed between the games so that, unwillingly also you will notice them. Even if you do not notice them, if it is a shorter advertisement, maybe you will observe it entirely. If it is a bigger advertisement content, then in that case also at least you may see the initial few seconds of the advertisement. So basically intentionally placing the ads in the video games or any of the interesting contents, that is one of the things that can be done to involve your customers. The next thing is you can use avatars. There are efficient avatars also. So basically if the avatars are very strong, those having the human like characteristics, those which are inhuman but they are having human like characteristics. If the avatars of the brands are very efficient, then in that case the involvement can be higher. The Atli Butli girl for Amul, she is a avatar which creates the difference. People remember and people are more involved in Amul advertisements because of that Atli Butli girl. So basically the content can be there, the avatars can be there, and this way you can involve your consumers in a better way. Then sensory appeals in the ads also can be used. For example, sensory appeals can be used, the USPs can be talked about, the experiences can be talked about, how this service is better. Like for example, advertisement of Singapore Airways would always talk about the experience. It would never talk about the features or the amenities they provide, but they always emphasize upon the experience. Any services when we talk about, they especially emphasize on the experience. So sensory appeals can be very motivating and that can lead to a positive involvement of your customers. And it is important that you should be having very good bond and a relationship with your customers. So basically you can have involvement by providing them loyalty schemes. You can have special schemes for your customers. You can give them discounts, you can give them coupons, you can give them some privilege. For example, if I talk about Will's Lifestyle, they have a policy that whenever in their apparel store they have any sort of sale going on, then in that case, in the first phase of the sale, it is only intimated to the loyal customers. No boards, no publicity, no advertisement, no promotion is done about the sale which will be commencing. So basically what happens is the only people who come to know about the sale is the loyal customers. They call up the loyal customers and they intimate them about the sale. So in this way what happens is the customer feels the privilege. And one more thing happens is the customer gets a large amount of choices. They get a variety of choices to make. For example, because it is the first day and they are the loyal customers, so they will be getting all the brands which were available for sale. So basically that is the intention. You should have bonds and relationship with your consumers, and that can lead to a better involvement. Now comes the question, which routes of persuasion are important, whether it is central route of persuasion which is effective or peripheral route of persuasion which is important. The answer, before I give you the answer to this question, let me talk what actually are the routes of persuasion. For example, there are some advertisements which talk about the USP of the product, which talk about the attributes of the product. So those are using the central route of persuasion. Those are using the information to convince their consumers, that the customers, that this product is worth taking. While peripheral route of persuasion means that when you are using a celebrity, when you are using a music piece in your advertisement, when you are using anything except the information which is very engaging and involving, then in that case it is peripheral route of persuasion. So central route of persuasion means when you talk about the features, you talk about the attributes of the product, you talk about the technical aspects of the product, then in that case it is central route of persuasion. Now central route of persuasion is very essential in case of high involvement purchases. As I've already discussed in this session, that high involvement purchases means, for example, I'm purchasing, say, a house. Then in that case, I will require it is a very complex decision making. It is a very complex problem which needs to be solved. So basically, what I'll do is I'll compare all the societies, I'll contact all the builders who are engaged in new projects. I will compare them price wise, location wise, my needs wise, whichever is suitable, I will go for that. But in case of marketers, they will be using the central route of persuasion. Why central route of persuasion? They would be convincing me about the features of the house. They would be talking about the USP of their project. They would be talking about what unique they have done which others have not done. Because a lot of amount of money, a large chunk of money is involved in high involvement purchases, and therefore the risk is very high. So therefore, high involvement purchases, they usually have the central route of persuasion as the strategy. It requires cognitive processing. So basically, mentally people, compare, they acquire a lot of information, they compare, and therefore central route of persuasion is a better strategy if you are selling anything that is of higher cost. For example, a very costly car, a very costly refrigerator, a very costly AC, a very costly real estate house, everything. When you want to promote them, then in that case central route of persuasion would be a more advisable course of action. While when it is a low involvement product, for example it is a bathing soap, which does not have much of the risk, even if the soap is not very good in the quality, then in that case it is mere the risk of say 25 to 30 rupees. So basically in those cases peripheral route of persuasion seems to be very important. Here, some humor, some musical piece, the symbols, everything plays a very very important role. The peripheral route of communication means you have to use the celebrities. Using of celebrities would make it sound like a better brand. So basically, low involvement products, they should follow the peripheral route of persuasion. Consumers are less motivated to think. In the case of low involvement products, because the risk is very less, so people are not very really motivated to think. They don't want to think very much. So what they do is whatever they know and whatever is available in front of them, they purchase it. So in those cases peripheral route of communication would be a more favorable form of persuasion strategy. Learning through repetition, visual cues, and holistic perception. So basically here repetition plays a very significant role. The brand which you have seen very often would be very much acceptable by the consumers. The visual clues, when I see that the role model, the celebrities are using it, there are so many lakhs and lakhs of customers who are using this soap, then in that case that would definitely have an impact on my consumption decision. And so basically perception plays a very very important role in the case of low involvement products. Now coming to what is hemispherical lateralization. So basically when I talk about hemispherical lateralization, our human brain is divided into two parts. It is also known as a split brain theory. So basically, it is divided into two parts. When I talk about this part, which is actually right to me, is the left side of my brain. And when I talk about this one, which is left side, in my case, is the right side of my brain. So basically, when I talk about the functions of left and the right brain, our left brain is really responsible for very rational decision. It is very active and it is very realistic. People who are very realistic, who talk very rationally, who take the decisions after inquiring everything, who are very vigilant, who are very spontaneous, have a better left brain which is functioning in their mind. So basically left brain, it is responsible for the rational part. Right brain, when I talk about, it is concerned with the emotions. We feel happy, we feel sad, we feel like laughing, we feel like crying. That is because of the right brain. The right brain is capable of sensing the emotions. So basically in the case of low involvement products, this side of the brain plays a very significant role. The brand with which you are emotionally connected would be very much acceptable to you. Metaphoric or impulsive. For example, if I like something, maybe I'll be tempted to buy that product. Suppose I go to a jewelry shop and I see a very beautiful necklace. Then, in that case, maybe I'll be impulsive in buying it. I'll not think twice before making such a big investment. So, basically, in that case, my right brain has worked. I have been emotionally attached. I have liked that product so much that, I am not willing to leave it. And it is also responsible for intuition. Some people, they use their right brain more, like for example the artists, the architects, all those people, those who are very creative, they use less information and more creativity, while people who use their left brains, those are very rational, but they are not very high on creativity. They can think very rationally and they can make decisions very well on the basis of the information, but they cannot be really good when it comes to the creativity. So basically, we have talked about various kinds of theories. In this chapter, overall, I have taught you what is consumer learning, what are the elements. Then I talked about the behavioral theories. Then I talked about the classical conditioning theory, the operant theory, and I also talked about the vicarious learning. Then we proceeded with the cognitive theories, the implications, how the entire retrieval process occurs, what are the factors which are responsible for information processing, why doesn't all the information end up in the long term memory, why does does all the information does not end up in the short term memory. So basically we have discussed about the cognitive theories. Then we talked about the involvement of the customer. We talked about the roots of persuasion. Now is the time when we talk about what are the measures of consumer learning theories. Once we have applied all these theories, whether I have used the behavioral theory approach or I have used the cognitive theory approach, whether those were successful and those have really made an impact or not, can be judged by the parameter which is known as recognition and recall measures. So basically, there is a fine line difference between recognition and recall. By recognition, I mean to say that I need a aid in order to recognize the brand. For example, I may have seen the advertisement of Slice having Katrina Kaif in it. So basically, I'm not able to recall which brand it was. I remember that I had seen Katrina Kaif, and I also remember that it was a mango drink, but I'm unable to recognize which brand it was. Now, when I go to the mall, I see a bottle of Slice. Immediately, I recall that this was the advertisement in which I had seen Katrina Kaif, who was the brand ambassador for the brand. So basically, recognition means that there has to be some clue, there has to be some hint, then only it is aided. What I mean by aiding is when you have the clue, when you have some aid, then in that case you are in a better position to recognize. Otherwise, you will not be in a position to recognize the brand. That is one measure. Recall means without any hint, without any clues, without any clues, you are able to recall the brand. The moment I say name a mango drink, then in that case, if the customer, they are able to recall the brand, they will reply as Slice, Maza, Mangola, or anything else. So basically, this is how recall measures are superior to recognition. However, if we have to evaluate the consumer learning, even recognition can play a significant role, because anyways, today the buying behavior of the consumers have changed. They go to the malls, they browse so many products. So basically, even if they are able to recognize the brand, that is an achievement, and the consumer learning can said to be happen. So basically, recognition and recall are the measures. Next important measures are brand loyalty. As per Philip Kotler, brand loyalty is nothing but it is a psychological contract between a consumers and the buyer and the manufacturers or the marketers. So basically, there's nothing in written, but there's a psychological bond. So basically, psychological bond means that you are so much connected emotionally to the brand that you have decided that I will be purchasing only this brand. Like for example, in the case of high involvement products, you may always think that to purchase the property or the house from a renowned builder. The reason is that you know that in the past also they had very good and very reliable projects. So basically brand loyalty comes more in the case of high involvement products, because people do not want to take the chance. There is an element of perceived risk, so brand loyalty plays a very significant role. Moreover, even the marketers would wish that in the case of high involvement products, the brand loyalty should be there, because they enjoy the loyal customers, they themselves become brand ambassadors, they purchase more and more from that particular brand. So basically they yield you a lot of revenue, and they can be the brand ambassadors, they can tell so many people about the working of the brand. So basically that would help you to create the image in the market. Moreover, there is a word which is known as evoked set. See, evoked set means how many brands you are considering before actually making the real purchase. So basically, if I want to purchase a say vehicle, then in that case, my evoked set could be, it could be Activa, it could be a EV, which I can in EV maybe I am interested in Ola, or I am interested in Ather, or I am interested in any other scooter from Honda. Say, for example, it can be Pleasure. So basically, it can be Honda, it can be Hero, or it can be any other brand which I may consider. So all these choices which I would be considering before making the final choices is a evoke set. So lesser the products in the evoke set of the customer, the more brand loyalty is expected. A brand loyal customer would have a very less amount of brands and products in their evoke set. So basically that's the advantage. More measures of consumer learning would be that there are three groups of factors. For example, personal degree of risk aversion or variety seeking. If the product I it seems to be really relevant to me, and it really looks very attractive to me, I think that it has too many varieties to be there, then in that case maybe I'll be loyal customer of that brand. So basically, in order to be loyal customer, what is required is personal degree of risk aversion or variety seeking has to be there. And second thing is the brand reputation and availability of the substitutes. If no brands are available, then in that case loyalty has to be there. I'll be bound to have a loyal relationship. Like in the case of IRCTC, somebody who is willing to go by train has to mandatorily go and pay to IRCTC. So basically, brands' reputation and availability of substitutes also has an impact on loyalty. And the third important factor is the social group influences. What my family says, what my friends say, what my peer group says, what is the opinion of the person who is the role model for me is playing a very important role on the loyalty. If these three factors are there, then in that case, depending on the level of these three factors, I will be either, I'll not be the loyal customer, means no loyalty means I'm not purchasing it. Covetous loyalty means maybe I appreciate the brand, I really want that brand, but at this point of time, I'm not purchasing anything from the brand. Like, for example, I may be aspiring to get a BMW someday, but at this point of time, I'm not a customer of BMW. So basically, I am a covetous loyal customer. Then there is a inertia loyalty. Inertia loyalty means, for example, I am consuming the products, I'm purchasing the products, but that is not a very conscious purchase. It is a habitual purchase, or it is a day to day purchase. It is a routine purchase. Like, for example, I purchase a bread of super brand. So basically, that is a inertia loyalty. I am loyal. I buy a loaf of bread every day. That is known as inertia loyalty, which is not very conscious, and which is not very, I buy it every day, but I do not appreciate it very highly, or I may not uh, be able to realize it. I am using super bread every day, but I'm not able to sense it. Premium loyalty is the best stage of loyalty, wherein I'm very conscious. I know I want to be loyal. I am very loyal to the brand. I won't switch. Even if there are some offers, there are some discounts going on in the other brands, maybe I'll not shift to the other brand. So basically, this is how, there are four types of loyalties. And finally, brand equity, the value inherent in a well-known brand name. So basically, brand equity can be in the terms of how many people are aware of it, how many people appreciate the brand. It can be in the terms of financial equity also, whether the brand is having a financial value or not. So basically, this is all from my side. Here I have explained you. Here I come to the end of the module on consumer learning. I hope I have addressed to all your concerns. I hope that you have understood what is consumer learning, what are the various theories, their marketing applications. Still, if you have some doubts, you can reach out to me. You can take my details, and I'll be available to solve all your problems. So, that is all from my side. Thank you so much for the patient listening. It was really nice to have this privilege of delivering a session on consumer learning, which is one of the area of my interest also, expertise also, and I've done my PhD also on the same. So thank you so much. I would again like to thank UGC HRDC Gujarat University for providing the opportunity to deliver a session to connect to you all, and also trusting on me. So thank you so much. Namaste. This is Dr. Vidita Sinha. Have a nice day.